This is a show about getting spooked for fun, and neither one of the hosts are associated with the attractions discussed in any way, except for those skeletons in Devin's closet. Some topics may go from ghoulish to ghastly, so viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to the Great American Scream.
Hey, Adam, look in the water. There's something there. It's a shark. Do you get that reference?
I do. That was a pull.
Thank you. I'm pretty good at those, those lesser known pulls. Oh, my mic was way too low. Well, that's okay.
The deep cuts. You really have to listen in for that one. You really got
to listen real close for that reference.
For those deep cuts.
I'll be very quiet. Hi, and welcome to the Great American Scream. My name is Devin Wright.
My name is Adam O'Connell, and welcome back to our little summer event here, our Summer of Scream, which is a name I'm really trying to push, so I hope you guys appreciate it.
Adam, the sun is hot and high in the sky.
Yeah.
Because now is the time when the Earth gets real close and cozy with the sun, and it gets real hot out there, and we all put on our SPF 73, and we go out in those hot ocean waves, and we ride them real good while sipping our drinks, the Miami Colada.
That was great.
Thank you.
Summer to me, I think summer is cute for like the first 3 weeks. And after the 4th of July, I'm over this. I want to be fall.
That's interesting. I've made the decision to move to Los Angeles, which I'll mention every single episode, I think, including when I'm already out there. So I've kind of decided perpetual summer is what I'm all about.
I think I was okay with it when I lived in Florida, but my biggest complaint about living in Florida was there's no fall
Living
here.
in Florida?
But also there's no fall here. There's a little bit of a fall in the winter for 2 weekends.
Yeah.
And
those are always when we would go to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, for us, we would step out in the December, right out of the Orlando airport, and we would be like, oh, it's so balmy. And it would be fully 65.
Yeah. But whatever you are choosing to do this summer, I hope everybody's staying safe, staying cool. Perhaps you are relaxing at the beach.
Staying out of the shark-infested waters.
Because we are going to celebrate summer by talking about, I think, my number one summer film, Jaws. It's also Shark Week, which I didn't even realize until I started researching this episode.
Baby.
We're recording this on Sunday. This is the beginning of Shark Week, so this is perfect. Discovery, call us.
Hey, as we go into Shark Week, I'd like to remind everyone before we jump into the main event of this episode, which is Jaws, the movie, Jaws with the shark, I'd like to mention the... I'm laughing because I'm looking up this video. Okay. So on Comedy Central, Anthony Jeselnik had a show that got canceled, but he did a episode of his show where he celebrated the death of a human being at the hands of a shark because millions of sharks are killed each year, and so this was a celebration of the fact that it was humans 3,600,000 sharks won.
Oh my God.
So they had a shark party. And I'd just like to shout that out because I still think that it was he was robbed of a show, and it was a great bit, and we deserved to celebrate sharks because they're sick as hell.
Yeah, I love sharks. I think sharks are great. But however, this movie...
Yep.
This was, I think, the first,
anti-shark propaganda.
Well, yeah, but this is also the first, scary movie that I was allowed to watch.
Okay.
Was Jaws. And it definitely made me afraid of sharks for a short time being. My thing about sharks is I think they are so cool and beautiful, and I would like to be at least 150 feet away from them at all times.
That's interesting.
They're very cool, but that doesn't mean that if I didn't see one in the ocean, I would not poopy in my pants.
I'd like to give that phrase a little air a little time to breathe. I would love to get into one of those funky little cages with a shark. I'd love to
never
do that.
ever want to do that.
I used to watch the Shark Week special of Mythbusters where Jamie tested punching sharks in the nose, and he would be like, I felt really bad punching these sharks in the nose. And anytime I watched that episode, I was like, I'd love to be Jamie in that moment, except instead of bopping him on the nose, I just kind of give him some pets.
Listen, like, Jaws is a movie that I watch every single summer per tradition. Summer has not started unless I have watched Jaws. Usually with some kind of tropical drink in hand.
Yeah, Memorial Day, that's not your vibe.
No,
a lot
it's
of
when
people
I watch
will,
Jaws.
take the cover off the pool, shock it a week before, have a barbecue Memorial Day, now summer's started, baby. You're saying, no, it's kind of a sliding scale. Whenever I get to Jaws.
Whenever I get to
summer
Jaws,
begins.
when summer starts.
If you watch Jaws on Labor Day weekend, summer is 3 days long.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I like take like the work hat off and I'm like, it's summer. Now, is Jaws a horror movie? Its place on this lovely horror podcast that we run
means that it is, and that's it. Period. It is a horror movie.
I would call Jaws a thriller, which is also what Wikipedia calls it. And I think what separates it from horror films...
Save you from the shark about to bite. It's thriller. Hey.
What I think kind of separates it from a horror films, its avoidance of any recognizable horror tropes kind of turns it into a thriller. Because I also don't consider most... like giant animal. I don't consider animal attack movies horror movies unless they're like an alien giant animal, like Supernatural or something.
Which Jaws is, first of all. But second of all, I would like to talk about, you're saying that animal by itself, not horror, adds some kind of crazy thing to it. So we could call this scale the Jaws to Sharknado scale of thriller versus horror. Because once you add a tornado, which is now throwing sharks around, now it is a horror movie.
I would more call it like the Jaws to like Cujo scale, where like Cujo is just a dog, but he is like also there's something supernatural going on.
A talking dog? I think also what I'd like to talk about in this moment is there's another side of this political compass that I'm creating. And that, my question to you is Moby Dick a horror book? Because I feel like this is kind of a direct descendant.
No, it's the same way that Jaws, I think I would not call Jaws a horror movie, even though we were talking about it on our horror podcast. Because I think
it's a beast hunt movie.
Yeah, some people do consider it a horror film, and old Brucey Boy often gets lumped in with like horror villains.
Some people consider it a love movie. Kind of a romance.
Yeah. And I honestly think one of its biggest things that changes it from like a horror to like an adventure thriller is it's too Steven Spielberg to be a horror movie, which is not a knock because I love Steven Spielberg.
No, that's
a
really fair point. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's too Steven Spielberg to be a horror movie. Like I didn't research to see if Steven Spielberg's ever directed a horror film before. I don't think he has, but
yeah, I mean, you take Spielberg away from E.T. and it kind of becomes a horror movie.
I was just thinking that. But yeah, I would call it a thriller film. But we are going to talk about it since it does get kind of lumped in with horror. But there's whether or not it's a horror film, nobody can argue that it is not one of the most iconic films of all time. Like Jaws,
those things have nothing to do with each other, so you can't argue.
Jaws is the movie.
It's the only movie.
It's Jaws.
Adam, it only took us 8 minutes to get to the point of the thesis of this podcast, this episode, which is that Jaws is the only movie.
The only one.
It's the only movie that matters. It's the only one. It's the only movie.
When I was young, it was my absolute favorite movie. I watched it constantly, and I truly never get sick of it. I will watch it whenever it is on, no matter where in the movie I flip the channel. It doesn't matter if it's the last 15 minutes. I'm going to watch it, or it's the next 90. I'm going to watch it to the end.
That's my connection to it, is that almost every like Sunday or like Saturday, I would like come downstairs at some point and my dad would be watching Jaws. Not clear when the movie started, not clear what channel it's on, not clear when my dad began watching it, but now Jaws was on.
Yeah. The only other movie I do that for is Forrest Gump. I'll watch that all the way through every single time.
Yeah, I mean, that's because there's no way to actually begin Forrest Gump at the beginning. It is always about 45 minutes into a 4-hour movie.
I don't think I've ever seen Forrest Gump from the very beginning. I've never seen Forrest Gump from the minute it starts to the minute it ends. I've just seen it all in
It's
different
not
pieces.
possible. The length of Forrest Gump is 1 minute longer than the world record for the longest somebody has stayed up. Like, you physically can't watch it.
Yeah, I think that ideal summer events are beach and pool screenings of Jaws. I think they're super fun.
Okay, I'd go for a pool. I think beach is a bit...
it's
might
fun.
scare the children.
Oh, it's fun. But Alamo Drafthouse is doing a screening later this month, and I can't get tickets. So if you're listening, Alamo,
Why can't you get tickets?
It's sold out.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just like a...
No.
I thought it was an Adam-specific fan.
But Alamo, if you're listening, please let me in. I want to see it so bad. So I want to talk about this very iconic horror-adjacent film, the impact it had not just on film, but on world and on culture. What is so scary about it? And also definitely the Universal Studios ride.
The best ride. The only ride.
The only ride.
Jaws is the only... Listen, we've all agreed that there's no such thing as original American culture. The only original forms of American art are comic books created by Jewish Americans, jazz created by Black Americans, and also minstrelsy shows. But
also Jaws.
And then Jaws.
So let's hash out some of the basics. Jaws, directed by Steven Spielberg, released in 1975, based, what many people don't know, based on the 1974 novel of the same name by Peter Benchley.
Yeah, but screw reading, we have the movie. Nobody needs to read anything.
It's based off a book, and it's actually Peter Benchley's first novel. And the novel is actually what I learned, because what I was obsessed with doing as a kid was seeing a movie I really liked and then immediately going to read the book.
Wow.
Which... because I didn't realize that there was a book based off of it or whatever. But what I learned is that the Jaws book is not very good. And Steven Spielberg agrees with me. Like, the thing about the Jaws book is that the three, or actually most of the main characters, are so unlikable. Steven Spielberg said that he was actively rooting for the shark, which is kind of fun. But
again, you take Steven Spielberg away from this movie, and I think way more people would root for the shark. To be fair, I root for the shark in this movie. The shark is the only character I care about in this movie. That's not true. I care about every character.
How can you not love little marine biologist Roy Scheider? Look at him. His little denim outfit.
I also care about
like
Quentin Brody. I can't. He does. That's very fair. I also care a lot about Quentin Brody.
Yeah, they're great.
That was a lie. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, podcast. I lied to you. I wanted to seem cool.
So... what you might know about Jaws is that it has a famously troubled production. It was the first major motion picture to be shot on the ocean, which proved to be difficult. They were over budget, they were past schedule, and the mechanical sharks that were nicknamed Bruce after Steven Spielberg's lawyer
they sucked.
Often malfunctioned. Terrible.
Yeah, they were the worst sharks.
Never worked.
But as we all know, made the movie way better.
Yeah, because this is majorly why. Yeah, this is majorly why we don't see the shark until the film's third act. Because the sharks were malfunctioning so much, to save time and money, Spielberg opted to merely suggest the shark's presence using POV camera angles, and then John Williams' obviously iconic score.
Right, the song we all remember from Jaws. Dun 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 dun. No, wait, I'm sorry, that's not it. Wait, it's ba 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 ba.
Just do that. Keep going through John Williams.
I'm good. You know, he did the music for a lot of the English versions of Miyazaki films.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's why a lot of them sound so Western. Anyway.
So yeah, and this would become one of the biggest reasons for the film's iconicness. If you haven't seen it, first of all, you have not watched the movie. You can't say you've seen a movie before because you haven't seen Jaws.
Where have you been living under a rock and not been to a movie theater?
Yeah.
Oh wait, nobody's been to a movie theater. Oh no. God, that doesn't make any sense anymore.
But this is what I'm saying. If you haven't seen Jaws, you can't say you've seen a movie before.
If you have ever been, this is the thing. If you have ever been into a movie theater, it's been to see Jaws.
Oh, okay.
And if you've been to a movie theater and it hasn't been to see Jaws, no, you haven't.
So go watch it. Second, the film follows the small New England. It is actually off the coast of Long Island, but was filmed in Martha's Vineyard, beach town of Amity Island, being terrorized by a giant man-eating great white shark.
Yes.
Police chief Martin Brody.
The only bad part about Martin Brody is the fact that he's a policeman.
I made a mistake podcast before. I said Roy Scheider when I met Richard Dreyfuss, because I was talking about Richard Dreyfuss as Hooper the marine biologist, not Roy Scheider as the police chief. When I talked about him looking like a Brooklyn hipster, I meant Richard Dreyfuss.
Right.
Oh, Devin froze on me.
I'm frozen? You're frozen too, but I can hear you.
Oh, there we go. I was just apologizing to the podcast.
No, I heard you the whole time.
Okay,
I was
great.
here the whole time. It was just you.
Awesome. So it follows Police Chief Martin Brody, played by Roy Scheider, teaming up with a marine biologist, played by Richard Dreyfuss, Hooper, and Quint, a shark hunter, played by Robert Shaw, to hunt it down. It is when we talk about summer blockbusters now, Jaws was the first one. Jaws invented the summer blockbuster. It was the first film.
Jaws is the only movie.
It was the first film to get a wide theatrical release. Like,
that's really wild to think about. I mean, you think back to like what the event movies were before Jaws, and they were musical films. So then once you had Hello Dolly fail and the musical film ceased to exist, we like reverted back to like caveman times in terms of movie releases.
What is movie?
People are rubbing two sticks together and they're saying, "Is this movie?"
Like, we would not have Marvel films without Jaws. Like, Jaws was the blueprint for
stop
Marvel
giving
films.
positives about a world without Jaws.
I was just saying that is like any summer
Marvel,
blockbuster.
I'm just joking. Please hire me.
That is like Jaws was the blueprint. So I think I would like to share some of our I mean, we've already shared many of our thoughts about the film, but also talk about some of I think the scariest moments of the movie, because this is a very scary film.
Yeah.
But I think it is a great entry-level non-horror horror film. If you think you do not like scary movies at all whatsoever, but you would like to try one, start with Jaws. It is thrilling, but not like, it's not sinister. It's not like horror
Right.
movie
That's
scary.
exactly the right word. It is, and it's a bit anxiety inducing, but it is all for fun. Like there are a lot of horror movies, even entry level ones, that the fun is supposed to come from you not feeling good.
Yeah.
And Jaws, you're always feeling good.
Yeah, it's just the right level of bloody and violent. Like, it is like there's blood, but it's not gratuitous. I said there's literally a severed leg in one shot, but like something about it like doesn't
It's
feel
that
like we
Spielberg,
see
it's that Spielberg
that's
spice.
what I'm saying. It's just Spielberg. Like, we see a severed leg and a severed head floating in the water, but it doesn't feel it doesn't feel gory. Like, it's genius. And it does have 2 jump scares, but this is not like an edge of your seat waiting for the next jump scare kind of movie.
Right. You know that the jump scare is coming, but again, not in the anxiety-inducing way a lot of horror movies are, but in a Spielberg way where you're like, I'm about to be spooked.
Yeah, they're
by
just
good
good jump
Stevie.
scares. They're fun. So let's talk about some of these scariest scenes and moments of the film. And Devin, if you have any I didn't get that you want to throw in, you can.
I want to talk about Chrissy Watkins and her terrible death at the beginning of the film.
That's the first thing I have is the opening scene. Perhaps the greatest opening to any film just ever. The very first attack in Jaws is horrifying.
And very Spielberg-esque to reference Psycho, in that you have this character introduced at the beginning and you're like, this is our main character. Dead.
And she's dead immediately. Kills her off instantly. It's great. And with an incredible performance by Susan Backlany, who's a stunt performer who played Chrissy, who was thrashed around with cables for the scene. And there's also a film myth going around that when she's like screaming for help and saying it hurts, it's because like she had a rib broken or it was actually hurting. That is not true. She was not actually injured during the scene. She's just a good actress.
Yeah, this isn't a Vigo breaking his toe in Lord of the Rings kind of thing.
She even had a cord that she could pull that would release the cable should something happen or she be in pain. That's another great thing about this. Okay, so they did say that the movie, like the production was troubled and it did kind of suck to be out there like on the ocean and stuff. But everyone was safe. Nobody was in danger.
It wasn't. Yeah.
It just sucked to be out on a boat.
Of course
with
it did.
3 dudes for however many months. And the sounds of her, which I always think is the most horrifying part of the scene, the sounds of her like gurgling and swallowing water, which I think really like that yucks me out the most.
Yeah.
That was achieved by laying her head under a microphone while they basically just poured water from a bucket on her head.
Yeah, that tracks.
So
I mean,
that'll do it.
I guess my thesis for the film is that because it is the only movie, right? Because it's Spielberg showing us such a movie.
Yeah.
Even stuff that would be super scary and freaky in another film, it feels like a movie, and not in a way that makes you like drop out of it. Not in a way that makes you go like, oh, this is just a movie, I don't care. You're going, this is a movie. Like
that's the thing.
You're
hearing
this gurgling, and you're like, I should be freaked out.
Yeah.
But this is a movie.
You know, like, I think what it is that I've just realized is that you never stop having a good time in Jaws. Like, you're scared, but you're still having a good time.
The town of Amity is having a bad time, but we are having a good
excellent time.
Yeah. A lovely sound of the summer type vibe to this movie.
It is. We don't, back to Chrissy's death, we don't even see the shark, as we discussed before.
This poor woman's
This poor woman. We don't even see the shark. And yet it's the scariest death in the whole movie. And also, we don't see any blood. When the shark pulls her under the surface at the end, and it's just silence. We just have to imagine. And we only see her from the top, from her neck up. Like, we just have to imagine what the shark is doing to her underneath the surface to warrant these screams.
Yeah. Hey, any fellow NYU people, if you're like, first year in Tisch, you're film and TV, you have to write something for someone. Write a paper about the use of, like, blood in Jaws, because like we all have this idea of like blood in the water, chumming the waters, sharks come in and there's blood in the water. And that is such a well utilized like visual in this film. Like you have no blood in this scene, and then you think of like the blood in like the shot of Brody shooting the tank, that you just get this explosion of blood and water and all this stuff. It's just such a genius thing for Spielberg. Hey, Steve.
He's so
good
great.
Job. Dude, good job, buddy.
Another scene I want to talk about is the next attack, which is Alex Kittner's death, which is like, I remember watching this as a kid and going, oh, like they killed a kid? This is like...
I'm not safe.
Yeah, nobody's safe in this movie.
Bruce.
What I think is most horrifying about Alex Kittner's death is that he is broad daylight, surrounded by other people. Like, he is like 10 feet at most from the other people in the ocean in this geyser of his own blood that comes up when he gets pulled underwater. And this movie is rated PG because PG-13 was not a thing yet, but it is still rated PG. Like, they haven't amended it. It is still
it
PG.
should be, because it's the only movie and you need to be able to be introduced to it.
Everybody should be able to watch it,
Yeah, with their parent around. And this one also, so here's my CinemaSins take on this film.
Ding.
I don't think that Adrian Brody should be able to close the beaches. I don't think the police chief has that kind of power. I think that what's the mayor's name?
Vaughn.
Sure. He's the one who's like, please keep the beaches open for the economy, because it's like, trying to paint local politicians is bad and local policemen is good, which I don't agree with, Stevie. We can talk about that. But I don't think it's up to Brody to say, no, we're closing the beaches. But the setup of like, this is such a good movie, because you're watching this go on and you're like, somebody's going to die.
And I do think
everybody's going to be super happy at the beach, and then somebody's going to die.
I do think the mayor, most of the mayor's takes in this movie, terrible, all bad takes. He does like two good takes. I mean, one of them being like when he, like after Alex Kittner dies and he's finally like comes to terms and like signs the thing to hire Quint and stuff. But the other one is when they pull the tiger shark out and they're like, we got it. And Hooper and Brody are like, let's cut it open, make sure it's the right shark. And the mayor is like, are you insane? If we cut the shark open, a little 12-year-old boy carcass is going to spill out all over the dock.
There's a boy in there.
you
If we
insane?
follow all of our assumptions to their conclusions, there's a boy in there.
Yeah,
Like, let's
we're
be
not-
clear.
like, the media is here. Like, we're not doing this, gang.
The press is here, and what you're saying is we should reveal a dead boy. That's what
Yeah.
you're saying. Is
Yeah.
me, the mayor, should pull open 2 velvet red curtains
Yeah.
to reveal a boy.
And like the mayor in the book, he's like skimming money off of like taxes to like pay for his own stuff. But in the movie, seems at least just genuinely concerned for the small businesses of Amity, which is like true of like tourist towns like
Yeah.
Amity. Without the money from the summer, they're dead in the water. Forgive the pun. But
Right.
So
Right.
those are his like 2 good takes to this movie. The rest of the takes are bad, but those are my like straw man has a point.
Yeah, I mean, I
Defense
don't
is
want to
the
get
mayor.
into the fact that being pro small business is a red herring and doesn't actually mean anything, but we
Yeah.
can move on.
Anyhow, Alex Kittner's death really kind of cements, I think, what kind of movie we're about to get into. And it is horror in broad daylight surrounded by people, which we don't get a lot and is one of my favorite things.
Yeah, when executed well is the best.
Yeah.
That's one thing that, hey,
Yeah.
we got to give Piranhas 3D some credit here.
Does most of that movie take place in the day?
Yeah, that scene where they're all like hopping off the lake dock. And
I've
then-
only ever seen the trailer, but I think I know exactly the scene you're talking about.
Yeah, like day horror is very good and something that scary fish movies apparently excel at.
Yeah. And that's what I think when this movie kind of like feels like summer. Like it's always daytime. It's not always daytime, but most like a lot of the movie it's daytime. There's this beautiful blue water. They're at the beach. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is summer. Anyhow, next I want to talk about the Ben Gardner jump scare, which is
Alright.
like the big jump scare of the movie. And this one this was my first big jump scare. This really got me as a kid.
Yeah.
So this one is when Hooper and Brody go to investigate the missing fishing boat, and Hooper's poking around in the scuba suit looking for stuff, and then Ben Gardner's severed head kind of floats.
Yeah.
Like
Well, he sees that cool tooth and he's
yeah,
super
he gets
excited.
the tooth. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
this
then-
is why it's so scary for me as a young boy, because I see that shark tooth. It's 2004. You know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's going to make a sick necklace, bro. And then here comes Ben's dang head.
Yeah. A fun fact about the actor that played Ben Gardner, not an actor, was just a fisherman that lived in Martha's Vineyard that they loved and
Yes.
just threw into the movie.
Yes.
And a ton of his, a lot of Quint's dialogue was based off of stuff that this guy playing Ben Gardner just said on
Just
set,
pulled
like
out.
off camera.
Hell yeah.
This guy
That's
rocks.
how you write a movie, baby.
And so originally the scene, which again is a very, very good jump scare, it was originally when it was shot, it was not a jump scare, but the reveal of the head did not get as big of a reaction as Spielberg wanted from the audience.
Yeah.
So he paid himself to have it reshot in his editor's pool to make it into a jump scare.
Steven,
Steven.
you wild boy.
And it worked. Like, thank God they did, because this is a scary, scary moment. There's like
Yeah.
a scream that accompanies it, and I can't tell if it's supposed to be diegetic or not. Like it's,
Adam, I love
I don't
the
know what's
idea that
making
it's
that
not.
sound.
I love the idea that they were like, just throw a scream in
Because
there.
it doesn't sound like Hooper.
Right,
Shriek-
right.
Like,
That
he's
makes
underwater. Like
He is under, yeah, which everybody knows in C, no one can hear you scream.
like I don't know what it's supposed to be.
I love the idea that they threw that in, like a laugh track.
Go back and listen to it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay. Also, of course, got to talk about you're gonna need a bigger boat.
Yeah.
Which it's, by the way, it's you're gonna need a bigger boat, not we're gonna need a bigger boat. It's like one
Wow.
of those Mandela
Wow, Adam.
effects thing.
Wow.
It is our first.
It should be we. This isn't a Mandela effect thing. This is a.
It's an edit.
This line would make more sense, and we as a people watching the one movie, we're like, we're gonna make one edit here.
Yeah. Okay. Is our first good look at the shark. And
Yep.
it's really a master level jump scare because of the music, because John Williams has now set us up and trained us to think that music equals shark and no music equals no shark. We are safe when there is no music. However, in this scene, the shark just breaches the surface in the middle of dialogue as characters like wisecracking with each other. No music, no classical kind of like setup. He just appears.
Yeah, and kind of Steven Spielberg flexing that I know I have one of the most incredible like composers ever. I know he will have trained you well for this moment.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to capitalize.
Exactly, as it needed. And it's our first look at how absolutely massive the shark is.
This is my problem with you trying to act as though this is just a normal fish movie with a normal-sized fish, and that's why this isn't a horror film. He's a big shark. He's like 25 feet long. He's 3 tons.
He is a big great white shark, but there's no inclination that this is because of supernatural means.
How big can
average great white
sharks get? Oh, great white shark, biggest great white shark. His name was Deep Blue, which is a great name.
Yeah.
He is, oh God,
is he big?
He's 22 feet.
Ooh, that's a big
but
shark.
The average length is 15 to 16 feet for females and 11 to 13 feet for males.
Okay, and how big was Bruce?
25 feet.
Okay, so
bigger than the biggest ever
He is
shark.
large.
He's a large boy, to be clear, and he is apparently also a trans icon because
what?
Because a male shark would never be that big.
Oh, okay. I see.
So what I'm saying is Bruce is an incredible trans man shark, and he's married to Deep Blue.
Some discourse that I didn't know about.
Oh my God, I wish there was discourse about that.
And finally, the last kind of very scary scene I want to talk about is Quint's death, which is brutal.
It's a lot.
Violent.
Yeah, especially for Brody, his gay friend who's, dealing with a lot of repressed homosexuality throughout this film.
And
it's a lot.
But I think Quint's death, too, it's not even one of those kind of heroic send-off. Like, I think of, like, Clever Girl from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very kind of, like, I'm one with the creatures that I hunt now kind of death. This is not that. Quint is suffering.
Yeah.
And in extreme pain.
I do put it up there with Clever Girl in terms of, like, iconic
how
deaths,
cool it is, but they're very different.
Different tonally, yes.
Because Clever Girl is like, oh, I've been bested by the very creatures
kind of
I trained.
Cheering. Yeah, you're kind
Quint
of cheering.
Is not. Quint is not.
And it's different from every other shark death, which I'm sorry to our tiny boy who does end up inside of Bruce's big old tum-tum, but I am cheering when Bruce kills that child. Don't take me out of context. Here, in 10 years, there will be a compilation.
Yeah. And I mean, because we also have the death of the guy in the estuary who's in the little rowboat, in the little canoe.
Yeah, which we need to talk about how this big shark boy got into that, like, reservoir.
Into the little pond.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that line of dialogue where Brody asks his son to go to the pond, and the kid goes, "The pond's for old ladies." And Brody goes, "I know it's for old ladies."
That's right, yeah.
But do it for the old man. It's very nice. There's a lot of good dad-son dialogue in this movie.
Yeah.
Brody's got big dad energy. But anyhow.
He's also got big gay energy. So by that token, he has big gay dad energy, which is an energy you don't see in cinema enough.
No. But yeah, because the death in the estuary is also violent. That's when we see the severed leg, but it is none of them are nearly as violent as Quint's death. When we see,
even if they're violent, they're not tragic. Like, I mean, they're tragic, but they're not tragic. You know?
Like we see half of Quint in the shark's mouth when the blood starts to spurt from Quint's mouth.
PG movie. PG.
Black. Yeah, PG movie. Like, that's violent.
Yeah, it again speaks to, I don't like how much we're praising Steven Spielberg. I love you, Steven Spielberg, but it does seem like this is just Devin gushes about Spielberg. But, like, he knows that this is the one character we've actually been invested in.
Yeah.
You know? His death wouldn't be as impactful or good on screen if it was treated the same way as the other deaths.
And Hooper was supposed to die because he dies in the book. In the book, Hooper dies when he goes down in the shark cage shortly before this. When they try and poison the shark.
Yeah.
But
Which wild plan, by the way. The phrase hypodermic spear gets thrown out and it doesn't seem real.
The reason that Hooper ends up surviving is they two like researchers for this movie caught this really amazing footage of a great white getting tangled in an empty in the cable of an empty shark cage.
Yeah.
And they were like, this footage is so cool. We need to use it in the movie. It's perfect. And you can very much tell when you're watching the movie where the mechanical shark is and which is the real shark. But they're like, we really need to use this, but the cage is empty. So they added a scene of Hooper like swimming away and hiding behind some coral. When, and he survives. Yeah, those are the top scary things I want to talk about. Unless there's anything that you wanted to add to the scary parts.
I think you hit all them. I think that the moments, again, speaking to the just the quality of this film. I think all the barrel scenes, which only exist because the shark was not available to shoot that day. He was somewhere else. He had a prior engagement. But the like barrels getting like dragged under and like, that freaks me out.
Yeah. I do enjoy the heroic music that plays every time they manage to land a spear. It's like as it swims off. It's great. Even though as a kid I didn't really like, A, I didn't understand Quinn's accent as a child, and B, I didn't understand what the plan was. So when they landed the barrel on the shark and there was the heroic music, that at least clued me in as a kid of like, oh, this is a good thing.
This is a good thing that
they did what they set out to do.
This is a good thing that we now have a kind of bobber on top of the boy.
I get it now. So now the cultural impact of this film, obviously massive. Beach attendance declined sharply in the summer of 1975, which the movie even bills itself as like the film that made you afraid of water.
Good.
People wouldn't even go in pools.
That's good, actually.
The reported thing. And while in theaters, this film was actually said to have caused a single case of cinematic neuroses in one 17-year-old. And cinematic neuroses is a condition in which viewers exhibit mental health disturbances or a worsening of existing mental health disturbances after viewing a film. This is one of the only ever recorded kind of medically like monitored cases as like not just immediately while watching the film, but for days and weeks after, as she wasn't able to sleep all the way through the night. And the day after the film, she would wake up in the middle of the night screaming sharks, sharks, and convulsing.
Which is what I was referencing at the beginning of the episode.
That's not what it was.
I have this, but with Call of Duty Zombies.
Ah, okay.
From the 5th game, I couldn't sleep for like 2 weeks.
And Jaws, alongside The Exorcist, are films often examined by medical professionals as causing stress reactions in its viewers. These are kind of like the two big ones.
All right.
But also alongside of people's fears of going into water, Jaws also changed the public perception of great white sharks forever.
Incorrectly.
Yeah, exactly. Because despite being creatures who will only attack if provoked, and if you are encroaching on their territory, if you look like a seal, Jaws sort of unintentionally painted a picture of great whites as killers who actively hunted humans.
Yeah.
And the movie and the novel that it's based on are loosely based off of a string of shark attacks in New Jersey in 1916. But a wide release sent Jaws, a wide release like Jaws had sent the nation into an absolute frenzy.
A kind of feeding frenzy, if you will.
Yeah, every blue-collar fisherman in America was setting out on their little boats and trying to kill sharks. Which is bad.
Guys, they're sharks. But also, hey,
sharks.
Every single, 32-year-old white man with some summer shandies on his little tin boat, you're not Brody or Quint. You're neither of them.
And like this is literally a scene in the movie when all of those little fishing boats, when Hooper gets there, when all the fishing boats set off before they kill the tiger shark.
Yeah, you know how I know that you're not Quint or Brody? Because you're too homophobic to be gay. And if you're not gay, you're not Brody or Quint.
That's funny that you say Quint and Brody are the gay ones, because I definitely would peg Hooper first as the gay one.
Of course Hooper is gay. That's in the text of the film. I'm saying that subtextually the other two are gay.
Got it.
Textually, super textually, Hooper is gay.
Got it. So Peter Benchley, the author of the original novel, actually says he regrets writing it because of the effect that it had on the shark population.
And also just because it was a bad book.
Yeah, also because it wasn't a great book. But he didn't know anything about sharks at the time and spent much of the rest of his life post Jaws campaigning for shark conservation, which is great.
Is he not with us anymore?
I don't think so. I think he has passed.
Rest in peace.
But so research by biologist Dr. Julia Baum suggests that between 1986 and 2000 in the Northwest Atlantic Ocean, there was a population decline of 89% in hammerhead sharks, 79% in great white sharks, and 65% in tiger sharks. And this was 10 years after the movie came out. But even like you can make the connection. Of
you can make the connection that sharks saw the movie and were like, we don't like the energy that New England is putting towards us.
Getting out of here.
I see that you're bent on my destruction, so I won't be giving you any. What's that quote? I'm saying it wrong. It's a Zoomer quote.
Oh.
I can see you're bent on. You're rooting for my downfall. Rooting for my downfall. Oh, well.
Didn't find it?
It's not here.
Oh, okay.
But that's what the shark said is, I can see you're rooting for my downfall. I won't be putting my energy towards this anymore. And they went away.
So, and sharks really do not pose a danger to humans unless we make ourselves a danger for them. Statistically, about 10 people a year die from shark attacks, and they are usually a case of mistaken identity by the shark. As the shark thinks you are food, takes a bite, goes, you're not food, and then leaves.
Yeah. And to put that into perspective, 100 million sharks are killed each year by humans.
And people aren't eaten by sharks. They like when people die from shark attacks, they die from the trauma following.
Yeah, we don't taste good, y'all.
Yeah, they don't eat
We're
us.
not seals.
And great white sharks are a vulnerable species. Again,
not individually, but kind of as a.
Again, it does not make me any less afraid of them. But I thought, I wanted to plug some shark conservation networks. There's sharkconservationfund.org, Project Aware, and Shark Trust are three really great organizations focused on shark awareness and conservation. So do check them out.
I would also suggest the video on YouTube called Shark Party, Jesselnick, which is a great video, and I would recommend it. I also in this outline, you said, however, this does not mean if I saw one in the ocean, I would not poop my pants.
Yeah, which I said earlier.
You did say it earlier, but you said poopy in my pants, which I like that you added that little flair.
Thank you. So finally, I want to talk about the legacy, more specifically, the sequels and the Universal Studios ride. So Jaws grossed about $1.15 billion in 2021 money, which is $427 million in 1975 dollars. Insane.
Which I said this before the podcast started, but this movie was made on $9 million in when it was made, which is still only like $42 million today.
Yeah. But
insane.
When Universal did think this movie was going to flop, and then when it didn't, it launched several terrible sequels that absolutely nobody asked for.
Yeah.
And there are so many horror movies that don't need to be franchises. There's so many, but this is like up there with the number one franchise that does not need to be a franchise. So Jaws 2 came out in 1978, is basically the exact same plot as the original.
The name broke. Yeah.
Just with Chief Brody dealing with a different shark and then blowing it up with electricity instead of compressed air.
It would be wild if it was the same shark.
Well,
it's like Frieza in Dragon Ball Z. He comes back with like cybernetic enhancements, and his dad is there too.
Well, eventually the franchise gets there, but first we have Jaws 3D, which came out in 1983, widely considered to be the film with the worst special effects of all time. It follows the two Brody children as they work at SeaWorld when a shark attacks a new underwater exhibit featuring some of the most abysmal 3D effects ever put to screen. It looks like hot steaming garbage. It's really bad.
Adam, I love it to death. I love that we make this podcast together. I know that you just said hot steaming garbage.
Yeah.
But it did sound like you said hot semen garbage.
Ew.
Just then, which is possibly the most disgusting thing you've ever said.
Ew. And then finally, Jaws: The Revenge came out in 1987. It is by
far
a
mummy tie-in.
The most ridiculous one. It follows Ellen Brody, Chief Brody's wife, after Chief Brody has passed because Roy Scheider said no thank you after the second movie.
And so they killed him.
As she realizes that the family members of the original shark are stalking and killing her family, and they follow her to the Caribbean and her family. Michael Caine is also in this movie. This film disowns Jaws 3D entirely, replacing all of the canon and advertising itself as, quote, the third film in the Jaws franchise.
The power that has. That is more, what are they? Fourquels should do that.
And also, without exaggeration, probably a fifth of this movie is sepia-toned flashbacks to just footage from the first one, and characters having flashbacks to things that they weren't even there for. Like when Ellen's about to kill the shark at the end of the movie, she has a flashback, quote, to Brody killing the shark in the first movie, which she wasn't there for. Except she has like psychic sharky senses in this movie.
Okay,
like,
kind of a Spider-Man thing.
Yeah, because early in the movie, she like steps into a body of water and then she snaps up and she's like, there are sharks here.
There, I could feel the sharks. And somebody's like, yeah, it's the ocean, Ellen. Of course there are sharks in there.
This is a very silly movie.
I'm trying to think of other franchises. Like, there are other franchises you could name that should have done this and disowned their third one. I'm going to go with least obvious, which is, of course, the Alvin and the Chipmunks series.
Yeah.
Which should have disowned Chipwrecked and gone with and said that Road Chip is the real third one. And the most obvious, Shrek Forever After, should have billed itself as the third Shrek movie. Shrek the Third should not exist.
Wow. I think I would prefer Shrek the Third over Shrek 4.
You are clinically insane. And if Adam,
I
swear to God,
been a while.
You're confusing the two.
Adam. It's been a while. Anyhow, I don't really remember what happens in Shrek the Third besides after the Frog King
Arthur
dies.
One.
It's the which one?
It's the Arthur one.
Yeah, he's there. What happens?
And exactly, Adam. It's a bad film.
Okay.
The fourth one is Rumpelstiltskin, and it's the best one.
That. Anyhow, I want to wrap us up by talking about the Universal Studios ride because, of course, we have to talk about it. And this is something that could get its own episode in the future. It is a little far removed from what we talk about, but it is scary. So if it is something you would like a full episode on, please let us know.
Yeah, and both of us have watched the Defunct Land episode on it about 50 times, I would say. So, like, we want to talk about it.
We can do it, yeah. If you want it, we'll do it. But for now, we'll just go into the basics of it. The ride currently only exists in its purest form at Universal Studios Japan. It was originally at Universal Studios Florida.
And then it got a Guardians of the Galaxy reskin.
It soft opened on June 7th, 1990, but actually not really because it experienced technical issues so massive that Universal ended up suing the ride manufacturer because the ride just didn't work.
And then they countersued because it was all actually Universal's fault for like planning badly, which is so wild. So they've remained in technical rehearsals for years.
Yeah. Like they basically rebuilt the ride from scratch, which took 3 years, which is fitting compared to what production of the Jaws film was like. It only makes sense that the ride production was also terrible. But it functionally opened in 1993 and immediately became a fan favorite, which did not save it from being closed on January 2nd, 2012 to make room for Diagon Alley. Which stinks. Diagon Alley is a cool land, but man, I miss Jaws.
If it got bulldozed to make Nintendo Land, I would accept it.
There is a cool Easter egg, though, if you're ever in Universal Studios. Next time you're there, go look for this. If you go into the Nocturne Alley part and you go to the storefront, what's the evil store called? Borgen and Burke
Borgen and Burke's?
Yeah. If you go there
Adam, I don't like that you just asked me for vague Harry Potter knowledge because, as you know, the other week I was at your lovely new apartment.
Yeah.
And there was a wand on the bookshelf nearby, and somebody said, "What wand is that?" And I identified it by sight.
Wait, which one was it?
It was McGonagall's wand.
Oh, did you see the other one? Because mine's there too.
Yeah, but it was embarrassing to my core that I do so much, and you've done it again, except this time on our podcast.
Well, it's just outing myself for the knowledge that there are 2 Harry Potter wands in my apartment, but I digress.
Yeah.
So if you go into to Borgen and Burke and go to the back window, there's a bunch of shrunken heads hanging there. And if you have the interactive wand and you do the spell there, they sing "Show Me the Way to Go Home," which is the sea shanty from the movie.
Ah, okay.
Nice.
You have little Harry Potter worlds can have little rights. As
There's a couple more. There's like there's some shark teeth and like a big shark jaw somewhere in there. They're around. Some little Easter eggs. But so the ride put guests on Captain Jake's Amity Boat Tours. Captain Jake being a reference to Jaws: The Revenge, as there was a character named Jake in it. Ready for an exciting tour of the real-life town of Amity, which is plagued with shark attacks in the 70s that, became the inspiration for the movie.
Right,
kind
standard
of enters
universal
like a full
fare.
circle there. Yeah. The skipper assures guests that they haven't seen a shark in years in Amity.
No.
And of course, you realize where the story goes next.
I'm guessing that they see a shark.
The ride was a technological marvel when it worked and was very scary for young children, with the animatronic shark coming within like a foot of the riders on the boat. It gets close. Which is another thing
close, Adam.
Yeah. Another thing with Universal is Universal, you will always walk off rides sopping wet for no reason, although this one makes sense. But also you will come within like a foot of all of their props and animatronics.
Yeah, this one makes sense at least. At least you are literally on a boat. When you walk off the Simpsons ride, you're like, am I covered in Springfield juice?
And not to mention, some of the fire and steam effects on the boat were a little too close for comfort at that scene at the barge when they blow up the thing.
Yeah, but that's listen. Your mom did not get burned by the fire on
it was
Jaws.
Hot,
it was
though.
a sunburn, and you
And the skippers were the true stars of this attraction, armed with a fake grenade launcher and just all the ham in the world. It was really like Jungle Cruise skipper taken up to like 11.
Right.
It was a lot.
It was like if you put a killer shark on Jungle Cruise, which, hey, good idea.
They're reimagining it right now. It could still happen.
Yeah, but it's already done. So
not the Florida one isn't done yet. Disneyland's
but
done,
like we
Florida.
already know what they're doing. Like we already know, and there's no killer shark in it, so I'm not going on it.
Just the hippos.
Listen, all this PC culture. Listen, most of these PC culture warriors are not going to go on Splash Mountain when they change it from the racist rabbit into Princess and the Frog. I'm fighting the true fight, and I'm saying I won't go on Jungle Cruise until they kill a shark.
So the skipper is the one that saves the day in the end, leading the shark through an electrical wire, which fries it, just like
Reference
Jaws 2.
Jaws 2.
Except that it's alive and gives one final jump scare before the skipper shoots it with a grenade launcher, which is really fun. Sometimes the skippers would let a kid operate the grenade launcher. Like the grenade launcher was the best part of the whole thing. It was great. I miss this ride so much. I was like watching old I was rewatching ride-throughs of it while researching, and I like shed a single tear. It's so great. It's so fun, especially that triumphant moment at the end when after you blow up the shark and you round the corner and Brody comes on the radio. It's like, are you guys okay?
Yeah.
And he goes like, call off the Marines. We're coming home. And everyone goes, woo! Like, it's really a class A example of like the magic of theme parks and how like, theming and ride manufacturing and amazing team members and employees can like work together to create a really unforgettable experience.
Yeah, and it's a proof point. It's a proof point for Universal's approach as well.
Yeah, where you will still walk off sopping wet for no reason.
Not a proof point of that, because I can't stress enough. You walk off the Minions ride and you're like, did Gru spit on me? This is awful.
You will get wet. Also, final fact, blew my mind. Apparently, at Halloween Horror Nights 10 in the year 2000, the ride was given a temporary makeover and renamed Bloody Waters with added blood and gore effects from the shark. And on occasion, literal scare actors in the boathouse scene. Does that make any sense for them to be there? No.
So can they do that to Escape from Gringotts this year too?
Yeah, that's going to do it that's all the information I have on Jaws, other than go make yourself a Blue Hawaiian, make yourself a pina colada, set up tonight, watch Jaws. It's a great summer thing to do.
I'd be remiss to not mention something that my partner Ezra has asked that I mention, which is the Onion movie review of this film, which posits the correct theory that that the shark represents the repressed homosexuality of Adrian Brody, when he kills the shark, he is then able to, marry a man, which is what he's been wanting to do for his whole life.
Yeah, I've only just found out about this, so when we finish recording, I'm gonna go watch it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Great American Scream. If you enjoyed, please leave a rate and review if you listen on iTunes, or follow us if you listen on Spotify. There's also a fancy little share button on that service that you can post to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, which would be lovely. Best way to spread the word, as always, is to tell a friend about it. Adam, can you pimp our social medias, please?
Yes, you can check us out on Facebook at The Great American Scream, or more frequently on Twitter and Instagram at Great Scream Pod. Please send us what you think of Jaws. What are your favorite moments? Is Adrian Brody gay? You tell us. You decide. Yes. Please tweet
you don't
at us.
Decide. I decide.
Tweet us or post using the hashtag TGAS. And as always, if there is something that you would like to hear about in the show, please tweet it at us. Let us know, because your suggestion may become a topic for a future episode.
Thank you to Michael Segudo for doing the disclaimer at the beginning of the show, as well as to Stevie Viola for doing the intro and outro music. You can find him on Twitter and YouTube.
I was going to say, do remember that we are bi-weekly for our little summer of Scream. So there will not be a new episode next week, but there will be one episode after that. So please, we gave you an extra long episode to tide you over until then.
It is very long. Thank you also to our patrons on the level of Man in the Fields or higher. You can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/greatscreampod. Tons of great rewards there, and tons more content coming once I get off my lazy butt. Thank you to Regina, Ben, Bree, Gail, Joyce, Melinda, and Chris. I have been Devin Wright.
I have been Adam O'Connell.
And hopefully you have been spooked, but in a fun Steven Spielberg kind of way. Adam?
Yeah.
Now it's your Adam. You have one job in this whole podcast. You don't do anything else for this podcast except one thing, which is in the outro. You say one thing, and that is what?
You know what? Actually, I'm twisting around. I'm not going to tell y'all to wait. I'm not going to tell y'all to be safe. I'm going to tell those sharks out there to be safe.
Hey, sharks, be safe out there.
Yeah. And go check out the Shark Conservation Fund, sharkconservationfund.org.
Shark Party.